Kia ora, my name is Nicole. I am 49 years old, which means I'm nearly 50. I'm a mother of 4 children and 2 beautiful grandchildren. I am a recovering addict. I have been in recovery since September 2019, so I'm coming up to 6 years clean and sober, which is something I'm very proud of. I used for a very long time, for 26 years, and during that time there was a lot of chaos and mayhem. I lost my children in that time, and also it's a family disease, and I also have one of my children who is also a recovering addict. My children are 30, 27, 21 and 14, so there's a wide range, and they're all wonderful, but I did lose connection, not only with them but with myself for those 26 years. A few years ago, I came to Gracegate, and I didn't believe when I got here. I found it really hard to be able to believe in something that I couldn't see, because all of my life I was brought up in a family that didn't believe. You know, so there was a stigma behind it, and I found it really hard to move past that stigma, not only for myself, but like, how was I going to tell my family that I'd come to believe? You know, that was really hard for me. And but the more and more that I got clean, I realised that it was actually okay to be me and to believe in what I wanted to believe in. The more I came to Gracegate, the more my heart was full, the more joy I felt, and the more connection and the unconditional love that I felt here. I just kept coming back. And then I decided that I wanted to learn more and know more, and that's where my journey in faith started. Yeah, it's been really beautiful. You know, I came in, and I think this is where we start. You know, we've been through the first few steps, and then we get to step 7, whereas I humbly asked him to remove my shortcomings, and then we asked, well, what is that? You know, because I had to question that myself. What are my shortcomings? For starters, I didn't believe I had any. You know, there's definitely no defects in this girl, and I thought that everything that I was doing was normal. But what it was is, in my using, I had created so many bad habits that I'd made normal in my life that were not a normal way to live. I was living in chaos. I was hanging out with not good people. I was in dark rooms with dark people doing dark things, you know. I didn't know how to be kind and loving and caring and all those things that now I ask God to remove for me, because that's how I do it. Every morning when I wake up, God, please let me have a good day. Let me be kind and caring and loving in everything that I do in life. You know, show me how to live clean. Show me how to be a nice, loving person, you know. And so step 7 is pretty freaking amazing. It really is. It's one of those amazing steps, and some people get to it and they're like, oh, you know, what am I going to do here? You know, because not everybody has come to believe like I feel like I have. I know without God in my life today that I would not be where I'm at, and I wouldn't have anybody to share those things with. You know, quite often I'm at home in bed at night, and I can go over my day, and I can admit really quickly when I haven't acted well. And I'll say to God, can you help me do that better tomorrow? You know, defects and shortcomings, they're not things that we have to be embarrassed about. They're not things that we don't want anybody to know. They are things that we work on, that we manage. You know, you can't remove some things that are deeply embedded in me, but you can teach me how to act on them better. And I think that's where step 7 comes in. You know, I get to write down my shortcomings. I get to share those with somebody else, and I bet to go, well, how would you think, you know, how would you help me? You know, and I have done all of the steps, and I am doing them again. And because the reality is that we never stop growing and we never, ever, ever stop learning in this journey. You know, I've learnt to be humble, you know, understanding what other people are going through, you know. I live in gratitude. You know, those things weren't in my life for such a long time. I was grateful for nothing. I passed blame on everything that I did. I took no responsibility, and I definitely wasn't aware that I was riddled with defects. A big part of step 7 and getting people to understand it is sharing my story, showing that it's possible. Because going from not believing to being able to have some faith and knowing that there is something out there, to me as God, that has shown me a new way to live, to have faith in humanity, to see that this is possible, to know that I can turn my life around, that I'm not hopeless, useless. You know, I think for me, sharing how it's done is a huge thing for people. I learned from the people that have walked before me, and so I try and uphold that and show how it's done by sharing my story with other people. You know, I was a broken little girl, and now I feel like I have purpose. You know, I have purpose in life. Do I get it right all the time? Definitely not. Well, it's progress, not perfection, as we know here. You know, no perfect people allowed. Thank goodness for that. I would have been kicked out ages ago. But being able to know that every single one of our journeys is different, but knowing that if we were on the right path and if we have God on our side, it makes life so much easier. You know, just holding on to faith. It took some time because I didn't want to do the steps, because I was too busy controlling, being and huge ego. You know, what can you teach me when I already know it? You know, and that's so far from the truth. Being able to, you know what? Step 7 taught me to stop fighting. Stop fighting the process. Stop fighting the things that I know need to change. Instead of fighting everything that was already instilled in me for such a long time, being able to be willing and open-minded to actually do some work on those defects and the shortcomings that I know I've got. And sometimes, are they there? Definitely. But my biggest thing for step 7 was I needed to have faith that God would help me to let go and work on those defects. And be kind to myself. And because it's okay to have defects. I think that's most important, is to learn to be kind to ourselves. And I can be my own worst critic. Whereas someone else doesn't see what I'm seeing, but inside here, I'm not being very nice to myself. So I have to tell myself to be kind, not only to others, but to myself. You know, and God helps me with that. You know, it's such a freeing process to be able to talk to God and say, please help me today. I haven't been acting so great. Can you show me how to do it better tomorrow? I think step 7 helps a lot with my spiritual growth. When I'm working through step 7, it helps me with my struggles. It's really important, I think, now to be able to write stuff down and go through it. So if I am writing stuff, I'm freeing myself. I'm freeing myself by being able to write stuff down and share it. Share it with someone else. Share it with God. I get to talk to God, and that helps with the struggles. Because the struggle can be real. I'm far from being recovered, far from getting this right every single day, but I know I'm on the right path. And I have faith every single day that my life's going to be okay. And I never used to have that. Never had it. So it's pretty beautiful. One of the things is, why do we do step 7? Because it's a great step to really build on our spiritual growth, to have the understanding that we can be who we truly are, but constantly want to work on that. and make ourselves better. And that's where the spiritual growth comes in for me, is that I'm not alone. So important. Being able to be humble, show gratitude, grow my spiritual growth through God, work on my defects, be open, willing, honest, kind, all those things, I didn't want to own my defects when I got here. I really didn't, because I think I was afraid. Because without those things that had protected me for most of my life, who am I going to be now? What am I going to be like? Nobody's going to like me. And then that comes into the other steps altogether, that self-worth and the self-esteem and being able to build all that stuff up. And what step 7 is showing me is that I'm actually okay just the way I am. As long as I'm just working on me, it'll be okay. I absolutely adore doing worship. I love giving back. I love serving God. I love the team. I get up there, I have fun, I have joy, and I think the more and more I get up there, the more comfortable I am. I love worship. Everyone should get up on that stage and give it a go. 100%. Yeah. It's one of the happiest places for me in this world right now. It brings me joy. My life has changed so much. That stage gives me joy. What I like most about it is everybody on that stage, when I'm doing practice or we're just here having fun or we're talking or we're having a worship night, is everyone loves me for me. And you know what? That's all I've ever wanted my whole life. Is to be loved unconditionally. And I find that here. I'd really like to encourage everyone to give it a go. Whether you are a lawyer, a doctor, whatever you do in life, the steps are just a way to live. I believe if everybody could implement the steps in their life, we'd have a pretty peaceful world. I firmly believe that. Yeah, the steps are wonderful, but just a way to live.